What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today let's get started with Paddy Pimblett breaks silence on run-in with Ilia Topuria. Recently, eyebrows were raised throughout the MMA world when at the weigh-ins for UFC London, Paddy Pimblett and Ilia Topuria appeared to share a fist bump and a laugh. Since then, the baddie explained why the rivals ended up sharing a somewhat shocking moment. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. If you follow the two, you know that they've been firing verbal shots at one another for a while now. Now that Topuria has moved up to lightweight from featherweight, the prospect of the two fighting at some juncture seems much more possible. In the recent video that went up on Pimblett's YouTube channel, it showed him going in to give Topuria a fist bump, while the former featherweight champion responded with a high-five attempt. The two were on hand at the ceremonial weigh-ins as their respective teammates were fighting at the event. Paddy proceeded to offer this explanation. "I was staring at him over there and he looked at me and went," said Pimblett while making a waving motion. "It went quite funny as I walked across here. He looked at me, I was looking at him, and he done that. Then, obviously on stage, as I walked past him, we both just laughed and looked at each other. I thought it would be quite funny to just go and he went like that on my hand like a high five. We might not like each other, but just have a little laugh then. It was a funny and awkward moment, although it's interesting to hear that according to Pimblett, Topuria greeted him from across the stage. All that aside, do you think that these two will actually fight each other one day? And do you think these two actually dislike each other as much as they've said?" UFC coaches get in an altercation after UFC win. At UFC Mexico City, Jamal Emmers knocked out Gabriel Miranda in the first round after a flying knee and a right hand, and his coaches could be seen getting into an altercation right after the KO win. Highlights from the UFC broadcast showed Emmers' striking coach Chris Cully and head coach Jacob Benny getting into an argument on the sidelines. Right after Emmers knocked out Miranda, striking coach Chris Cully screamed in Jacob Benny's face and jabbed a finger at him. Benny responded by grabbing Cully's wrists to restrain him. UFC lightweight Chris Padilla was also seen trying to calm everyone down. As of right now, no one has any idea what truly happened. This was bizarre considering a win for your fighter should result in celebration from your team, but it looks like the tension between these two has been building up for a while. MMA community reacts to Bruce Buffer huge mistake. Bruce Buffer has been a fixture on UFC cards for years, and the legendary announcer continues to get a serious pop from crowds. But after Buffer made a pretty bad gaffe at UFC Mexico, he took some heat online. Jamal Emmers took on Gabriel Miranda at the event and proceeded to put him away in the first round with strikes, but to the surprise of many, Buffer prompted cringes by announcing Miranda had won the fight. Not surprisingly, it wasn't long before the MMA community was reacting online. Here were some of the posts. "Did Buffer say the wrong name or did my stream lag? Absolutamente NGM. Bruce Buffer oe. Bruce Buffer just announced Gabriel Miranda win by KO. LMAO, what a huge mistake. Bruce Buffer tonight. Bruce Buffer just called Jamal Emmers Gabriel Fly Miranda brutal stuff from Bruce. Bruce Buffer is entitled to a mistake here and there. It's never not going to be funny though. Now it was a pretty bad mistake, but as people have noted, when you call as many fights as Buffer does, it's bound to happen sometime, right? Or no? Sean Brady goes off on Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. It remains to be seen when and who Sean Brady fights next, but recently the welterweight contender took issue with Kamaru Usman's reported call-out before lighting up Colby Covington big time. Brady moved into the #1 contender spot on account of his decisive submission win over former champion Leon Edwards earlier this month. Due to that victory and his ranking, Brady could be tapped to fight the winner of the Belal Muhammad Jack Della Maddalena scrap on May 10th, especially if Shavkat Rakhmonov is still sidelined with injuries. Well, during the Brady Bag show, the Philly fighter was asked to comment on Usman's call for a title shot eliminator fight between the two. Brady was also asked about Covington, who reportedly claimed that he would have an easy time defeating the top contender.
"I was trying to get the Usman fight for months. DM'd him, hit him up. Now he was like, man, me and Brady should fight for the #1 contender." I'm like, oh, should we? I just beat the guy who beat you twice.
Colby Covington?
Same thing with him. He's this high-level wrestler. I'm like, bro, Leon took you down multiple times. Beat the out of you. You see what I just did to Leon? Like, what would I do to you, bro? Like, I would him. He's not even getting anyone in the top 50. Dude, he might not even have a job.
Yeah.
When's the last time that dude won a fight? He sucks. Colby, you're a how you get punched on by Masvidal in public and go sue him? You're a pro fighter. You're a
The chances of Covington getting a bout with Brady in the near future are likely slim to none. Chaos has not won a fight since 2022 when he recorded a decision win over Jorge Masvidal, and he slid all the way down to the #9 ranking. Usman is ranked #4, so if the UFC wants Brady to fight one more time before getting tapped for a title shot, and if Rakhmonov is next for Muhammad or JDM, then that fight could be a possibility. But what do you think? Do you see Brady fighting one more time before he gets a crack at the belt? Daniel Cormier reacts to Ilia Topuria's comments. Recently, Ilia Topuria claimed claim that Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira are afraid to throw hands with him, but Daniel Cormier is dismissing the idea that they or any of the lightweight elites are ducking a showdown with El Matador. The MMA world continues to play the waiting game in terms of when and who Topuria will fight next, now that he's vacated the featherweight title. The consensus is the UFC is hoping to book a fight between him and the lightweight king Makhachev. At a recent media event in Spain, Topuria said only fights with Makhachev or Oliveira make sense. The star also claimed that the men are scared to face him in the cage. Since then, Cormier weighed in on Topuria's comments via his YouTube channel. The important thing is, all the conversation surrounds Ilia Topuria right now. Ilia said he wants a title fight, point blank. He said he's focusing all of his training on Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. Ilia Topuria is a cool guy, but I kind of disagree. I know for sure Islam Makhachev is not afraid of him. I'll tell you this as a person that's a friend of Islam, a person that knows Islam for years and years, he's not afraid of him. Ilia Topuria might strike some fear in most or some, Islam's not afraid of him. And I'll be honest with you, neither is Justin Gaethje, neither is Charles Oliveira, neither is Dustin Poirier or Michael Chandler. Those guys are not afraid of each other. They're fighters, and when you're a fighter, fear is kind of the last thing that crosses your mind in regards to another fighter, especially if all you have to do is fight him. It is kind of hard that the galaxy's most dangerous and talented lightweights are afraid to fight Topuria, when you consider that Makhachev has also defeated the legendary featherweight Alexander Volkanovski twice. What do you think? Are you on board with DC's take here? On the topic of Ilia Topuria, he had a media interview recently and reacted to Charles Oliveira's response to his quote disrespectful comments. Ilia was not a fan of the response, and this is what he had to say to Oliveira. I haven't dissed Charles, I've told the truth. He has 10 losses, 5 by knockout, 4 by submission, 1 by decision. He says lightweight is the toughest division there is. When he was fighting at 145, Cub Swanson beat him up. So if that's disrespectful, I don't know, since when telling the truth is disrespectful. Ilia also talked about the UFC promising him a title shot. Here's what he had to say. The UFC promised me I'd fight for the belt. That's why I vacated it, and they've always kept their promise. What are your thoughts on Topuria's comments? Let us know down in the comment section. Dana White not happy with Henry Cejudo over retirement. Henry Cejudo continues to call for an immediate rematch with Song Yadong, but since Dana White has scoffed at the proposal, Cejudo believes it's another sign the UFC boss is still upset with his earlier retirement. Cejudo battled Yadong in February in a fight that was widely panned on account of how it ended. Cejudo was impacted by an eye poke in round 3, and ultimately the fight was called off in round 4 when the decorated wrestler said he could not see. Since Yadong was ahead of him on the scorecards at that point, he was awarded the fight. Well, both men called for a rematch after, but White made it clear he wasn't down with this idea. More recently, Cejudo spoke with John Morgan, and while discussing his desire to rematch Yadong before he calls it quits on his career, again, Cejudo said this. I think that's it. I want to make sure that I'm here for my kids. I think sometimes accidents like this happen, and I get it, man. Like, there's no ill will towards Song. I'd love to fight him again too, if that could be my last fight, but I don't think Dana's too happy. I do feel like Dana's mad at me for retiring in 2020, and that's still in him. I do want to have a one-on-one conversation with him. When Cejudo announced his retirement for the first time, he was widely regarded to be one of the best fighters in the game. After all, he had only recently vacated the flyweight title at that point and was the bantamweight king. So it caught a lot of people off guard when he announced that he was retiring back in 2020. While it may be true that White has some issues with Cejudo, do you think that's why he's not on board with Cejudo versus Yadong too? The consensus was Yadong was winning the fight, and there didn't seem to be that many people screaming for a rematch. What do you think? Merab Dvalishvili, WRESTLES fan. Recently, Merab Dvalishvili was recorded taking a spill right beside a cliff while doing some dancing, and now the bantamweight champion's making news for another move that could irk Dana White. As you can see by watching the following clip, recently, Merab apparently wrestled a fan on the beach. Not only does it look like the quote fan unquote has wrestled, they also appear to be a lot bigger than the champion.
Dump, dump, dump. Head outside. Dump him, dump. Dump, dump, dump. There you go.
Sure, Merab wrestles and spars all the time against world-class opposition, so this might not be viewed as too big of a deal. But if Dvalishvili say trashed his knee doing this, what would White's reaction be? Merab is expected to rematch Sean O'Malley at UFC 316 in June. Joe Pyfer released a statement on pulling out of fight. Just hours before the UFC's latest card in Mexico City was set to begin, it was revealed Joe Pyfer had pulled out of a scheduled fight with Kelvin Gastelum. Since then, the heavy-handed middleweight has released a statement explaining why he dropped out of the fight. Pyfer, who was supposed to battle the former TUF winner on the main card, released the following statement via Instagram. "Just want to say my heart is broken. I couldn't fight today. I got super sick, and hopefully we can reschedule this fight for a few weeks from now. Unfortunately, comes with the territory of traveling outside of the States. Never again. My apologies, guys. We'll be back." This was an unfortunate hit to the UFC Mexico card, no question. Pyfer's been turning hands on account of his 4-1 run in the UFC to date, and was coming off a nasty knockout of Marc-Andre Barrio this last summer. Further, Gastelum is one of the toughest outs in the division and was coming off a pivotal win over Daniel Rodriguez. Hopefully the UFC can get this fight added to a card right around the corner.
I went to my team dinner. I did not drink the water. I hadn't drank the water the whole time I was out there. I had some food that was in a place that was supposedly trusted. Yeah, a couple hours later, I had the runs. I think I at least 10, 11 times the morning of, with a puddle that I was sleeping in. A fever, nausea, obviously, like vomit, excruciating stomach pain, and the doctor, as well as I didn't find it smart to fight like that. And I know that's not what everybody wants, but I have to look out for me and my health and what's my best interest. Trust me, I am upset as well. I feel bad for Kelvin as well. You know, I didn't give that man a chance to make his money. I don't know if they'll take care of him or not, but you know, it's never my intention to leave somebody high and dry. We deserve to fight. It's an entertaining fight. It's a good matchup, and you know, he bangs, I bang, and you know, hopefully in the future we can run it back. The last thing I will address is, I don't care if it's offensive to you. I will never go back to that country. I did everything right. I slept in a tent. I did all this work to still get sick. Some people are saying it wasn't the food, saying I got altitude sickness. And if that's what altitude and elevation is, that country, I will never fight there again. Hole, not going back. Don't care if that's offensive to you. You're not the one fighting.
Dana White cancels UFC 314 fight. Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal has been canceled due to injury, and there will be no replacement opponent. UFC officials announced Saturday that Neal sustained an undisclosed injury and was forced to withdraw from the welterweight fight. And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day. While Carlos Prates won't get a replacement opponent for his fight, John Anik said during the injury announcement that there's big news coming for Prates. He also posted this on social media, teasing good news. News and good news coming soon. Speaking of canceled fights, rumors are circulating right now that Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill is also canceled due to injury. It's rumored right now that Jamal Hill sustained an injury that will pull him out of his fight at UFC Kansas City against Khalil Roundtree. Once again, nothing is officially confirmed. As for the replacement, it looks like Derek Lewis might be stepping in for the UFC Kansas City main event against Khalil Roundtree. What are your thoughts on everything? Let us know down in the comment section.